Hello, guys out there. Welcome to another day with PE Slick Podcast and Soaps Pass. This is your host, Ranger Matt. And these past couple of weeks, I've had a couple of great guests come on board from the Guide and Light, and I got another one. This one is a throwback. He has not been seen since 1990 on Guide and Light. This is Carl T. Evans. He played the first Alan Michael Spaulding from July the 2nd of 1987 until June of 1990. For 3 years, he took Alan Michael down an interesting road, and he also played Nick on As the World Turns in 2001 through 2002. He's done some movies, and I'm glad to have him aboard. And this is a special reason why I got him aboard today, and I'm gonna let y'all know when I bring him on. So let me go get him.
How you
Hey,
doing?
Carl.
How's it going?
Good. Wait a minute.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
You got me?
Hear
I can hear you.
me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's not working. Let's see. Um, let's see.
You
Yeah,
hear me?
the air. Hold on. Let me check something. Yeah, it's all on. It's up. Wait a minute. Muted. That's unmuted. So can you hear me
You
at
hear
all?
me?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
No. Can't hear me.
hold on. Let me see if.
Okay.
Hold on. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can hear you. My volume was
All
down on
right.
my phone.
Okay. All right. How you doing? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too, man. This is a
Cool.
special occasion tonight. You know why?
Why is that?
Because I've been doing podcasting since December of last year, and this is my 50th episode. So you're my 50th guest.
Wow. Congratulations. That's awesome. That's great. Cool.
And listen, sorry for the confusion earlier. When we said 6 p.m., I thought you was in New York like the others. I didn't know you was in
Oh,
California. So
okay.
I
Yeah.
decided.
Is that a problem? Is it still going to work out even though it's 3 hours later?
No. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Um, how are things holding up with you guys during the pandemic though?
It's challenging. It's tough. I used to go to the gym a lot. Now I have to work out at home, which is an interesting thing to get motivated working out at home. Um, it's been good. It's been good. I'm making the best out of it, trying to be positive, doing some things on that I'm setting up for future projects that I'm excited about. I've been directing and writing for years now. I've got a film I'm working on that I'm prepping as soon as the pandemic's over, and I'm shooting a commercial for BMW motorcycles next month, which is cool.
Well, you've come a long way from your GL days, from acting, and now you behind the camera. um,
Yeah, well, yeah, things change. Creatively, I wanted to do more, so I started writing, and then that writing led to ultimately producing and then directing. So that's ultimately how that ended up happening. As an actor, it's so great to work, but there's so much time that you're not working unless you're on a show, that you need things to do. So filling the time with writing, filling the time with ultimately producing and directing has changed a lot of things for me, which made it great. Really actually allowed me to be more creative and do more things that make me feel better about the things that I'm actually doing, which is expressing myself. That's what it all comes down to. The opportunity to express yourself, tell stories. And just like on Guiding Light, I mean, that was an amazing opportunity for me. I met some terrific people, had some of the best times working, and I miss it. I definitely miss it. But
yeah.
that was very fulfilling. Creating the relationships, Grant Alexander, Beth Ellers, Michael O'Leary. Some of the funniest pranks were played on me when I was there, certainly early on. And I miss that. And ultimately, as an artist, what do you want to do? You want to perform and you want to tell stories. And the transition to directing and writing and producing seemed pretty natural because it was things that I wanted to do and say. And if I wasn't cast in those particular roles, I decided I was going to create them for myself or other actors.
Right. Well, you know, man, you did make an impact on me when I first heard about you, because when I got hooked on Guy in White, I don't know if you knew him, but after you left, Rick Hurst took over the role as Alan Michael.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew him as Alan Michael, and when I first saw you, you was on As the World Turns. You did the star as Nick, who was kind of a good but then bad guy.
Yeah, kind of a bad guy. I'd say more of a bad guy than anything else. Yeah.
Let's go back a bit though, Carl. Where are you from?
I'm from New York City.
Okay. When exactly did you know that acting, writing, like when did you know growing up this was something you wanted to get into?
Actually, in high school, you know, when I was about 17 years old, I got involved in a play. I just did it for fun. Some of my friends were doing it. We didn't really take it too seriously. I certainly didn't take it seriously at all. And actually, I think I was 16. And as we started to work on it and work on the play, I realized how much I actually liked it. And shortly after the play was done, I was sitting with my parents and they had seen the play. They came and watched it. I said, I really like this. I like what it feels like to actually create a character, emotionally take this journey. And they said, maybe this is something you should look into. Well, a year later, I think I was 17, I was signed with representation. I was doing commercials and auditioning for TV shows. And that was pretty much the beginning of it. I fell into it by accident. I actually had no real desire early on to do that. But thankfully, I had a couple of friends who were actors and they said, we're doing this play. And I was like, really? Well, what do you need to do? And they said, well, you got to study your lines and this and that. And I said, I'll give it a shot. And I fell in love with it. So it was totally by accident that I found it. And yeah, I guess I never looked back.
Yeah. Okay. So of course, the role that everybody still talks about today, on Guy in Light, you came in July 2nd of 87, which was at the Bower Barbecue. You parachuted in.
The fact that you know that scares me. I don't even know the date.
How did that come about for you?
How did that happen? Well, it was a series of auditions, quite a few auditions, more than I thought I'd have to actually do. I actually read about 3 times, and then I had a screen test, which was really exciting because you negotiate the terms and there's a possibility you may get the job. I did the screen test and I was with 5 other actors that had all dark hair with one actor who had blonde hair. And it was Brad Pitt, which was kind of funny. Yeah. Yeah. So he and I kind of hit it off while we were waiting to go and actually audition. And we were talking. He says, hey, I live in California. I said, oh, that's so cool. In a couple of months, I'm actually going to California to visit my sister. He's like, here's my number. Give me a call. I was like, great. Well, about a month later, we got another call to test again. So it was myself, Brad Pitt, and 5 more actors with dark hair. So I saw him again. They flew him back to New York because he was living in California. So what ended up happening is that we saw each other and I was like, this is crazy. You know, I said, if I don't get it, I hope you get it. He says, if I don't get it, I hope you get the job. And I said, I'll be there in like two and a half weeks. He says, great, we got to get together. Ultimately, the day I flew to California with my family on a vacation, I got a call from my manager. And I was at the hotel I was staying at, and I had auditioned for a commercial that morning for McDonald's for a director I already worked with. So when they said to me, sit down because we got some good news, I was like, great, what is it? You got the job. So I immediately thought I got the commercial. So I was like, oh, that's cool. And they said, well, you know, you don't seem very excited. I said, well, I've already done a commercial with this director. I think it's great. I'll do another one. They're like, no, not the commercial. You got Guy in Light. And I was like, what? So that was an amazing moment. And it took a little while for it to sink in. That night, Brad Pitt actually picked me up and he took me around town and was like celebrating the fact that I actually got the job, telling everybody that would listen that I got the job. And then I flew back to New York. A month later, I was working, and it was a real transition from being in college, because I was in college with an acting scholarship, and I left school to pursue my acting. And a few months after I left school, I was on the show. So that's basically how it went down.
Yeah. And who knew, you know what I mean? Because when, you know, the second you joined the show, I mean, you really took the Alan Michael on such a dynamic journey in them 3 years that you was on the show. When you joined, how did they describe the character to you?
Well, he was a rich kid who was obviously not always following the quote unquote rules, and wasn't the easiest person to be around. Had a lot of friction in his family, but he was a good person underneath all that. So the character was fun because I got to be a bad character, meaning do some things that aren't really, you know, what you're supposed to be doing. I definitely got in a lot of trouble, pushed the envelope with the family, but also what was nice about the character is I got to be a caring, concerned person as well, not just a bad guy. So, you know, when you're young, you got an older brother, you got a father, everyone's telling you what to do. The character was great because I got to say no to everyone and argue with everyone, and then ultimately end up working it out, usually. And that's fun. That's a fun character to be able to play both sides of that. Play someone who's actually out there trying to make a point, being very aggressive, getting into trouble. I remember I stole a motorcycle, got in an accident, was in the jail for a little while. There's all these fun things that happen. But in the end, ultimately, it worked out to a certain extent. But most importantly, the character was a good character that had a lot of problems that he was dealing with that most young kids have to deal with. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun. It was certainly a lot of fun.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to turn my phone around. I got a clip to show you right here. I don't know if you've seen it recently, but there's a moment with you on Guiding Light.
Okay.
Your first episode.
Yeah, that's it. Look at that.
Look at that handsome guy.
Oh my gosh. That's fun. That's really fun.
Yeah.
You know what's so funny about that? You know what's so funny about that? That shooting of me flying in obviously was me, of course. No, it wasn't me. But when I landed, right, and I grabbed up all my stuff, and then I went inside, you know, I went over to the rest of the group. That was inside the studio. So basically the entire cast was there staring at me. I had only met like 2 people, and I had to walk in and start my actual Guiding Light character in front of 25 people that I didn't know any of them. So a little daunting your first day in the studio. You're in front of the entire cast. And I couldn't pick out, I mean, I'd watched several episodes, but I didn't know who everybody was at that point. So I was like, wow, this is a sure way of getting me right in the middle of everything. So it was cool. It was good. It worked out. It was fun.
Yeah. What are your memories of working with both Chris Bernard and Daniel Pilon as Alan Spaulding? We lost Chris back in the 80s, and Daniel passed away a few years ago.
Yeah, both very tragic. Really great, actually. As actors, they were both really giving. And I, as a new actor on daytime, just because you train as an actor and you train on the stage, it doesn't mean that it translates to television, certainly daytime, which has a really, really quick pace. You know, you're shooting 35, 45, sometimes 60 pages a day. When you do a play or you work on a TV show, you know, you shoot a 47-minute TV show in 5 or 6 days. So getting up to speed, understanding the process, the rehearsal process, finding the ability to actually retain all this information, because there's a lot of information. You needed support. You know, you needed to actually kind of learn the ropes, so to speak. So the actors that played, you know, both of those actors obviously were terrific, but they both were very supportive in my journey to getting from being a brand new actor, being on a soap for the first time, and actually dealing with learning this actual process. And Grant Alexander, I will say, obviously, Philip was a huge help in me kind of understanding how it works, and actually ways of making it work better and understanding the process. Because when you come from the theater, which is really where I came from, mostly the theater, a little bit of commercials, and but mostly the theater. We have lots of time to rehearse, and then all of a sudden you're doing an episode a day. You really have to ramp it up, and how you do that and be successful at it. I learned a lot from Grant Alexander, who was just really great. Kind of took me under his wing and was like, okay, I get it. You're real frustrated. You want to do this. You want to do more of this. You want to do more of that. Here's how you go about it. Here's how you structure your day. Here's how you structure your plan. And when you're working, here are some of the things you can do to make it easier for yourself. And it really helped, along with, obviously, the rest of the cast. But Grant kind of took a real step forward to help me out and allow me to understand what I needed to do. And anytime I had an issue, it was great. I could go to him and say, I'm not sure what to do here. I'm struggling a little bit with this situation, whether it was the lines or transitioning from scene to scene, doing all the scenes in a row. He was really helpful in allowing that to happen as far as his information. So I felt really lucky. But everybody was like that. I mean, everybody on the show was so welcoming, so kind. Michael O'Leary was great. Michael O'Leary, as you probably know, was like the biggest jokester ever. He was always pulling pranks on everybody. So right in the beginning, I got pranked many times by him. Yeah, he got me many times.
Wow. And of course, you also had the best romance with you worked with the actress that played Dinah.
Yeah, Paige Turco.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. Well, that was great. That was like my first. Literally, that was my first television romance. And actually, if you want to, it was the first time I actually had a relationship. And then we had to kiss. And I remember the day we were supposed to kiss for the first time.
Right.
She came into my dressing room and she says, "Do you want to rehearse this?" And I was like, "Which part? The line?" She's like, "No, the kiss." I'm like, "Yeah, I think we're going to be all right. I think we're going to be all right." That's what I said to her. She says, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, we're just going to kiss. You really want to practice it?" I mean, I know about rehearsing, but the kissing part, I thought that was kind of funny. She was so nervous because she didn't think it was going to look real. And I don't know, apparently it looked real because the fans seemed to like it. I just said, let's go with it. The scene warrants the kiss. Let's just do it. And it worked out. We didn't actually plan it. And we didn't actually plan how it was going to happen and what we were going to do. We just did it, which I thought was really cool.
Any memories of Beverly McKenzie, who was the first Alexandra Spaulding?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Beverly was awesome. She was such a wonderful actress. And honestly, she had the most amazing stories to tell about her life, about the theater, about the things that she had done. She would start telling a story, honestly, and between the crew and the cast and anybody that was even in earshot, there'd be a circle around her listening to the story because she had so much to actually offer. And she was willing to share these stories. Some of them were absolutely hysterical, where we were like rolling around on the floor laughing. But she was really wonderful in that, and so giving and kind. She also was tough. If you didn't know your stuff, like you weren't ready to do your stuff, you didn't have your lines down, you weren't ready to go, she'd let you know that it wasn't okay. She was a serious professional. She wanted everyone to be at a certain level, and I understand that, and I appreciate that.
Right. Yeah, when I first got hooked on the show, I knew more of the later Alex, Marge Doucet, who took over for Alex. I knew more of her work. My mother told me a lot about Beverly. I didn't know who she was until years later, watching the episodes on YouTube and on tape and all that. And she was a real classy lady. Her and her son Scott directing
Scott.
as well.
Yeah, they were great. I mean, Scott was awesome. Scott was just like her mother. He was just a super professional. He really did the right thing. And between the two of them, it was interesting to watch a son direct his mother. I mean, I think about myself as a director, and I have directed my mother in one small little scene with my dad. But the reality is, you know, there's a lot of dialogue, there's a lot of information, there's a lot going on, and then to watch a son and a mother work so well together, I thought that was pretty amazing because, you know, sometimes it's difficult to direct your mom, right? I can only imagine. My mom's great. She can be you know, what's that?
I'm sorry. I was saying I've done that too. When I was in college, I did a short film that was a soap opera, and my mother played the divorce attorney, and I directed her as well. And that was a little challenge,
Oh,
but we, you know, yeah.
You did it though, right? Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I found out Scott's mother was Beverly, I was like, wow, this could be really interesting. And when I was in the scenes, I was wondering what it was going to be like, and it was great. They worked really well together. And like I said, she was such a professional. I don't think I ever remember her forgetting one of her lines ever. I don't think I ever remember that. You know, she was like, she came to the table, she was ready, which was exciting.
I gotta tell you, man, the funniest moment I have of you from watching episodes from 1990, your last year.
Right.
So remember when you started working with Sherry? She was Blake.
Yes, the other woman that I married on the show.
Yeah, the funniest
Yeah.
moment, and I watched it over and over, was the moment where you two were together and Philip walked in on you and you told him to get out.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That was definitely funny. Yeah, that was fun. I mean, you know, the shows they're fun because there's so much going on. The storylines have like 5 or 10 different levels. There's all kinds of stuff happening, and she was great to work with. She was a lot of fun. Also, you know, super professional. I had a great time, but I was very fortunate. I was fortunate because right in the beginning, I worked with Paige. She was amazing. Then Harley came along, Beth Ehlers, right? And Beth and I literally, we had like a banter with our characters and like an energy that was really, really translated to the screen, I felt. And I felt like what we were doing and the characters that we had and how we kind of told the story, it was really easy to work with her. She was also really talented. And the most amazing thing about her is that she would look over the script one time and know everybody's lines. That's how she learned them. She read it once. Wow. Now, me, I wasn't like that. I was hours on it, you know, like studying for an exam, right? And she'd say, oh, that's not your line. And I'm like, what do you mean? She said, that's not your line. And she would know it. She would actually remember mine as well as hers, you know, and it's amazing. I definitely was lucky to have that opportunity to work with her. And the running joke was, you know, I used to say to her, you know why you have a job, right? And she says, why? I said, because I'm on the show and they needed someone for me to be involved with. And then she says, no, the reason why you still have a job is I came in here to save your character. So that was like a little banter we had back and forth.
Wow.
Yeah.
You and Harley had quite interesting, great scenes together. Somebody did a video a while ago of Alan Michael, and then there was a clip of you two. Y'all got on the plane to get married, I think, or do something like that. And she jumped on your back, and y'all went tumbling over the bed.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
that was definitely fun. Yeah, we got a lot of fun stuff to do. The writers were. You know, the writers did a lot of dramatic stuff with us and then some fun stuff. I do remember an episode where my character was, you know, obviously really wealthy, and I'm still the same way when it comes to this, what my character did. My character went camping for the first time. And we actually went to the store and bought like a refrigerator and like an air conditioner and a stove. And we brought all this stuff to a camping site, which is why that's the way I would actually camp. I'd want all these different things with me. People say you go camping and you have nothing. I'm like, well, wait a second, where's the refrigerator? Where's it? So what was great about it on the show is that was the joke. We were out camping. We had a big tent with big beds and all the things you'd actually have in a kitchen around us. That's not really camping. You know, but I thought that was a fun episode because that's my interpretation of camping. And that's the joke. My friends are like, you want to go camping? I'm like, yeah. Which hotel? That's what I usually say.
Well, Carl, I gotta tell you, man, like 2 or 3 months ago, I had Grant Alexander on here, and I told him I had reached out to you, and he said if I ever got in touch with you to say hi.
That's great. I owe him a call. I'd love to talk with him. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
How's he doing? I'm sure he's doing great, but I actually haven't spoke to him in a while.
Yeah, he doing good, real good. I reached out to him to do another interview, and we'll see what happens. But he doing real well. I had a blast talking with him, and I had Beth Chamberlain on the show, and your
wow.
old Morgan England too.
Oh wow, yeah, he lives out here actually. And I know he's
Yeah.
doing some music. He's doing some music now, right?
Yeah.
That's
Now,
cool. That's
ironically, Alan Michael and Dylan didn't get along. You didn't like Dylan when he came to the show.
no, I didn't
Yeah.
like him. No, he didn't like me either. But he was getting in the way of all the things that were happening that were good with me.
Yeah.
And the women were excited about him, like Harley, which wasn't really helping me out. So that friction there was fun. That friction was definitely a fun aspect to play with him, for sure.
Yeah. So before we move on to the next question, I got one more clip for you. This is a clip with you and you and Beth Ellis right here. I'm gonna turn the phone around. It's from 1990.
Would you like to bet your trust fund on that? All right. Show it to me. Oh, Alan Michael, you think I'm a complete idiot? I'm going to take it out, you're going to tackle me, and you're going to break it. All right. Like I said, you don't have anything.
Turn it down.
All right. You caught me, Alan Michael. There is no tape. There's also no apartment uptown where you rendezvous with your sister-in-law. By the way, who picked out the sheets? I just love black satin.
You both got on black shirts.
Yeah, that was I haven't seen that clip in a really long time. That was cool. That was definitely cool. Yeah, we had that takes me back actually. I just flashed back to that whole time. Yeah, that was definitely fun. Did you have a question about that scene in particular? Because I do remember what happened before and after that.
Only thing I was going to say was that aired May 17th, 1990, 1 year before I was born.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's why you showed it. That's cool. That's cool. So your mother was watching the show first? Is that what happened?
So here's how I got hooked onto the show. So basically, I was born in 91, and she was watching soaps first. I think my grandmother watched some of it too. The first show I watched as a kid was The Young and the Restless, and I saw The Boardroom and The Bedroom, and I was like, "What is this? What is soap operas? What is people in the boardroom in the bedroom? What is this?" And then I got on As the World Turns, and then that's when you came along not long after that, and then I got on Guiding Light, and I started following the show a lot. Watching the show kind of helped me as a kid because I went through a lot growing up with just being my mother and me, and I was also a subject of bullying because I was a little bigger than how I was. I was bullied a lot because of my weight as a kid.
Oh wow, okay.
And my escape was out from watching soap operas and learning about Guiding Light. I started becoming a writer, and I always would write all the time. I would get drama ideas, action ideas, comedy ideas. So I started when I got in college. I started following writing and making movies, photography, and up till this day, until like sometime last year, I was making short films. I did a little mini series.
That's great.
That was like a soap opera, and now I'm doing a documentary about Guiding Light, about the whole history of the show because how much I love the show, and about a film producer who passed away in the 90s named Don Simpson. I'm doing something on him as well. And
that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, basically, I just fell in love with Guiding Light, and as a result, I would come up with these ideas with storylines. The very first thing I did, way back in my 5th grade year, was I took all my friends and I called my show WK. My elementary school was Winfield Elementary. I called it Winfield Kids, and all my friends and me was in like the soap opera the way I wrote it. and I played this mob man, and my best friend was my bodyguard, and the girl I had a crush on was my wife, and you know it I don't know how to explain it, but from watching soap operas, it just came from me writing, and it was kind of my escape. So you guys helped me a lot with growing up and writing.
Yeah, that is super cool. I love to hear that. I love to hear the fact that that you watch the show and you got a lot from it. A lot of people watch the shows and they actually get a lot out of it, and the escape is nice. Sorry to hear that you were bullied. I think we've all had some stuff growing up, and it's obvious you've gotten over it and you dealt with it. But it's cool that the show helped you out. The show, when I would go do appearances and I would talk to fans, honestly, I'd hear a lot of people say to me that that they took the journey, they took the ride, they actually felt like they knew all of us. So the one thing about the soaps that I felt was really, really profound was that I would meet people for the first time, but they would act like they knew me for a really long time. And they'd ask me questions and talk to me and say, "Oh, Alan Michael." And I'd say, "Well, yeah, Alan Michael's a great character." And it was funny because I realized pretty quickly that I was in their home. You know, all of these actors on the show, we were in their home, in these individuals' homes every day, right? So we're in their homes, and all of a sudden, we're talking, we're experiencing stuff. They're involved. They get to actually interact, like say, "No, don't do that," or "Well, you shouldn't do that." And all of a sudden, you get emotionally attached to these characters, which I didn't know. See, the thing is, I didn't know about soap operas as far as watching them. My parents weren't watching. My mom was not watching them. So for me, it was a job that I understood, but I didn't really understand the culture that went along with it. And the first time I went to a personal appearance where I showed up somewhere, I thought there'd be a few people, 20, 40, 50 people there. And it ended up being a lot of people. I mean, it ended up being a lot of people at this appearance. And I realized really quickly after talking to a lot of different individuals, what they liked about the show and why they liked it and how it affected them. Like you're saying, it gave you an escape and a place to go, and it actually helped out. So the job wasn't just a job anymore. It was like, wow, we're actually affecting people's lives too, in a way. And I thought, I had no idea. I actually had no idea. And that was pretty cool. You know, that was really an interesting aspect of the whole part of this. And it got me more inspired to want to do more things that affect people. And that's where my writing started to happen. Like, what stories can I tell that I write that can affect people, that hopefully allow them to think some introspection where they think about themselves, their lives, how they act, and entertain people at the same time. And that's a challenge, of course, a big challenge. But that's kind of how I started with my writing, because of what I realized that the television was doing. Because at the time, like I said, I hadn't watched daytime. I was too busy being a kid at 16 years old. I wasn't watching television. I was out doing other things. I know other kids were doing that, but I wasn't until I actually got on the show did I realize the effect it had.
Yeah. Yeah, and for a show like Guiding Light that started way back in the day when it was on radio in 1937, and it went all the way until 2009. I mean, it was a show that touched a lot of people, generations watched the show, and it's like you were saying, when you, because people see you're not Carl, they see you as Alan Michael, so they'll approach you and be like, "Hey, Alan Michael."
Yeah. Yeah. I remember the first time somebody approached me on the street, and it was I was on my way to work, and I was walking to get a cab, and walking down the street, and somebody said, "Hey, Alan Michael," and I was like, "Huh? What? Oh, yeah." It was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, "Oh, yeah." And they're like, "Hey, what did they say?" They said, "Oh, I got to ask you something." I was like, "Yeah, sure." They were talking to me like you run into one of your neighbors, one of your friends, right? So I was like, "Yeah, what's going on?" They said, "Are you going to do the right thing by Harley?" And I was like, you mean the actress?" And they're like, "Yeah, you going to do the right thing by Harley?" I was like, "Well, I'm not really sure. The writers know a little bit more about that than I do. And as far as I know, I want to do the right thing, but it's a job." And the person was like, looking at me like, what? What do you mean it's a job? And I was like, "Okay, I got to go," and I, obviously moved on. But it was interesting because at that moment I was like, wow, this person totally crossing the line between my character ultimately and a job. Like, is it real? Is it not real? And I thought maybe they were joking around. I don't know, but it was fun. But then I realized shortly after that, when I went to these personal appearances, that people really do get emotionally involved, like we talked about. And they would say things to me like, I'd have a lot of mothers come up to me and say, I like you. And I like Alan Michael. I like you, but you know, I don't like what you're doing with Dinah. And I'd be like, well, yeah, it's, you know, it's a drama, you know, it's some drama in there. So yeah, you should be treating her a lot nicer than that. And I'm thinking, okay, so I'm not writing it. I'm actually just the actor. And I would say that to them. And again, they'd be like, yeah, but you still should do the right thing. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm, yeah. So it was interesting how I've worked on movies and theater and other things, and I've met people that have seen my work, but with daytime, they literally think they know you. I mean, it's like you're a part of the family. And again, like it affected you, it affected other people. I think it's actually really cool if they like your character. If they don't like your character, it's not the coolest thing.
Yeah, because that means, you know, your character is, you know, going down a different direction. Remember Gary Swanson, when that whole thing happened with him and Blake?
Oh yeah.
William Bell Sullivan was his name in real life.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, that's, you know, it's the challenging. It's challenging. You never know what you're going to get. You never know what we always would ask, what's my character going to be doing in 3 months? Because we didn't know. We actually didn't know the character storyline. So as an actor, just like as an audience member, you know, someone watching the show, we weren't really sure what was going to happen to us because they didn't tell us in advance. We'd find out a few scripts before. Like on Monday, if I read Monday's script, by Wednesday, if I decided to look ahead and see what was happening, I'm like, wow, we're breaking up on Wednesday? Whoa, I had no idea. After this 2-year relationship, now we're breaking up, right? So it was interesting how we weren't told either. Like when you make a film or you do a television show, like a guest spot, you read the whole episode, you know what's going to happen, beginning, middle, and end. But on daytime, it never actually ends. If you think about daytime, when I got married on daytime to Harley, that took 6 months, but that was actually only on, you know, in real time, that was about 2 weeks on the show. But it took 6 months to actually show that. So it's interesting because we didn't really know what was going to happen. A lot of times we'd walk in after reading the script and be like, I had no idea my character was going to do this, which was cool and exciting. And the fans actually got to take the ride, obviously, with us. And I think that's one of the reasons why the shows were so successful, because there was so much going on. It was always changing. It never stopped. And it was 365 days a year.
Yeah. And the other thing, too, that drew me to the Guiding Light as well was because, you know, you guys had like a balance. You also had like a balanced cast. You know, on the other shows like Young and the Restless, As the World Turns, you was on As the World Turns, so you probably know this too, and One Life to Live. Those shows always changed characters and cast all the time. People was always leaving and coming all the time.
Yeah,
you guys always had a balanced, steady cast that stayed on. Y'all had quick and, you know, storylines going, but y'all had like a steady cast of people who stayed on for a period of time.
Long time. Yeah, we you know, Grant Alexander was there for a long time. Michael O'Leary. I mean, there were people there that stayed there for a long time, and they were the foundation of the show. I mean, when you talk about like Grant Alexander and Michael O'Leary, bottom line is they were such a big part of that show. For the show to work, in my opinion, certainly with my storyline, Philip had to be there. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he left the show and came back. He left the show for a little while, and he actually came back, if I'm not mistaken, before I was there, before I was cast.
Yeah,
right. And things were better when he was back.
Yeah. I think too, it also got something to do with y'all head writer. Y'all had Pam Long and Robert Calhoun as producer as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was fortunate.
Yeah, and you, like I said, I mean, you was Alan Michael. I mean, like I said, I knew Rick Kurtz, but watching you later on, it was like I I can't. I don't know what the word to use, but it was just you as Alan Michael. You know.
I appreciate that. Well, you know, I got to tell you about Rick Hurst. The story about him. I was visiting New York. He was already on the show. He'd been on for I think a couple of years. I actually decided to go to the show and say hi to everybody, but I did it in such a way that nobody knew I was there except for Rick and maybe I think Rick was the only one and Philip, obviously Grant Alexander. And what I did was I said to Rick, I said, Rick, let's play a trick on everybody. Give me your jacket. I'm going to wear my sunglasses. Give me your script. I'm going to go behind the stage. And when they call, you know, they count down 5, 4, 3. When they call it down for your next scene, I'm going to walk out with the sunglasses on, only wearing your jacket, not the rest of the suit, and start doing your lines. And he was like, that is such a cool idea. So I literally walked out on stage, started saying the lines. I didn't know the lines that well. I could hear the door open, footsteps running and the door open. And that was the wardrobe wanting to bust in on this rehearsal to say, wait a minute, you're not wearing the pants and the jacket, right? I knew that was going to happen. Then I stopped and I took my glasses down. They saw that it wasn't Rick. I looked in the camera and I said, hey, everybody, how you doing? And then everybody just bust out laughing because nobody knew that I was going to do this, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, it was probably, and he was so cool to do it because he's like, oh, here's the first Alan Michael. I'm the second Alan Michael. He was really cool about it. He's like a really good sport. So I thought that was a lot of fun that we got to do that.
Yeah. Man, you know, I often said I wish I was there, you know, to meet you guys because I've always said that you got, like you were saying before about people watching the show, I would consider you guys like my best friends. You know, I could come home from school, from middle, college, and you know, even today, I got some episodes from 1990 and 89 on DVD over there. I could tune in and get hooked. You know, I know all the storylines now.
Yeah, you know, well, I mean, they're really emotional shows, and they deal with real issues that everybody deals with. You know, and you can relate to it. And again, like I said before about the personal appearances, I wasn't sure what they were going to be like, and I didn't know how people were going to, you know, react. But when I realized how important it was for people and how they connected with the characters, I thought it was that much cooler, I should say, as a job, because I got immediate response from individuals that really liked the show, you know, and it is like a family, because if you think about it like this, if you come home every day and you see the same group of people on your shows 5 days a week, and you are interested and care about them, and you get involved in their stories, well, they're a part of your life. That's why people used to say to me, "Oh, you're on my story. You're on my story." That's what they would say. Like, I love my stories, and you're on my story. And I'm like, now I understand what that means. That's the story that the people that love whatever show it is get so involved, they feel like they're a part of it. And I think that's a really unique thing. That doesn't happen as much, I think, with shows that are on once a week versus 5 days a week. Because think about spending time with somebody 5 days a week versus, you know, 1 day a week. You know, I mean, it's you get, there's more. You know, we did 365 shows a year. If you watch your favorite show, I love, you know, let's say Criminal Minds, one of my favorite shows. If you watch that show, it's on 22 times, maybe 26 a year out of 52 weeks. And it's only once a week. It's not out of those 25 or 22 episodes. It's only once a week. So in that respect, you definitely are more connected to the characters. And your effect on people is greater because of that, which was another thing, like I said, that I didn't realize until I got involved in the show.
Absolutely. So what made you leave the show in 1990 after 3 years? I really desperately wanted to live in California. I had visited, when I told you, when I found out I got the show, I visited my sister. And I actually hadn't been to California in a really long time. And Brad actually was so cool. He took me around to all these different places. And I wanted to live there. You know, he was living in an apartment.
auditioning for shows and movies and things. And I was like, you know what, this is something that I want to do. I'd lived my whole life in New York, and I just felt like I really wanted to go out and be in Los Angeles. And that's basically the reason why. It's not that I didn't like the show. Of course, I love the show. And again, it was a great experience, but I felt like there was something that I just needed to try, meaning living somewhere else, living away from my family, and focusing only on my career, which is what I did. I came out to Los Angeles. I started training. Got some great training with a wonderful acting coach, Howard Fine, who was just amazing. And, you know, I started like the second stage of my life and my career. And it was my first time actually living outside of New York.
Right. Was it hard to say goodbye to everybody when you left on your last day?
Yeah, it was tough. I mean, they are your family. They become your family, because you see them 4 or 5 times a day, or I'm sorry, 3 or 4 times a week, sometimes more than that. And you spend so much time there. I mean, I actually spent more time on the set and in the studio than I did doing anything else while I was on the show. So crew, you know, the cast, everybody, you know, it's like a big family. And it was such a good group of people, you know, such a good group of people that ultimately, you feel like you're leaving your another set of friends and another family when you leave the show, because the show is, you know, it takes a lot to do a show. You know, the studying, the amount of lines, the amount of time you have to be there. You know, so I understand why when you leave the show, we don't stay connected like that. See, the show brings us together, but the show also takes up a lot of our time, right? So in that respect, it's not as easy to keep the relationships going, because everyone's working. And then now if you're not working, what are you doing? You're out pursuing jobs, right? That's what you're doing. You're out in the process of pursuing jobs. So in that respect, you know, that was something that was difficult. I mean, the nice part is that they threw me a going away party, which was a lot of fun. You know, I got to properly say how I felt about everyone that night, you know, and let them know how much I appreciated their friendship and the job, the producers, and thanked everyone. And it was tough. It was a tough transition, but you know, Rick did a great job when he came on. So Alan Michael didn't miss too much. He came on and picked right up where I left off, and won like 2 Emmys or something, at least one, right?
Yeah, because when you left the show, Alan Michael had just married Blake, and then Alan Michael was kidnapped, and then that's when Rick slipped into the role. Yeah.
yeah. So it was you know, it was tough to go. I missed all of them. I missed the banter. I missed the joking around. I missed the fact that everybody cared. You know, everybody was so supportive. You know, but you know, change is always good. I am a WGA writer in the Writers Guild. I'm producing and directing films. I'm doing commercials. I'm what I've realized in my transition is that as a director and a writer, creatively, I'm actually more fulfilled than if I was just acting. Because for me, as a director, I've got to handle the whole entire structure of the film, right? The look, the pacing, the close, the acting, the writing, the directing, the editing. Like, I'm involved in all of that. So from a creative point of view, this transition for me made a lot of sense, because I was able to actually dive in head first and be fully submerged in the creative process. As an actor, which I love, and I'll always be an actor first, director, writer, producer second, but as an actor, you play a very important role within that project. But as a director, and you know this because you've done directing, you're responsible for everything, right? So from a creative point of view, you've got a blank canvas as a director, and you get to color it the way you'd like. And that's something that kind of took me from being in front of the camera to being more behind the camera, because of what I got from all of that work and all the added things that you need to do as a director, which I didn't know until I got in and started directing.
Yeah. And you also, this is another thing I saw you on too. Afterwards, you was on 90210. Your character was Jonathan.
Yes, I was. That's right. That was fun. You know, I did several episodes of that show. I had been on a bunch of different guest spots, and then that show was like the hottest show on television. So just being involved in that show was a lot of fun. It was a good opportunity. Interestingly enough, I had auditioned for. I knew Luke Perry from New York, and I knew Luke Perry from New York because he and I screen tested for a different show that he got. He got a show, so that's how I met him. And then years later, here I am on the set, and there's Luke Perry. So we knew each other way back. He was on Ryan's Hope when I was on Guiding Light.
That's
so
right.
Wow. We would get together and hang out, and became friends. And when he was out here, I was friendly with him out here, and used to see him periodically and hang out with him. So it was interesting how the transition took place, and then he was on 90210, and there I am on 90210 for a little bit. So that was cool. It was definitely it was actually it was cool. I was very sad what happened to him. He was a really, really kind, good person. He really was.
Yeah, I was a fan of his. Yeah. You I guess you also knew Ian from his Guiding Light days as well. He played Cameron on the show. Yeah,
absolutely. Interestingly enough, I used to see Ian on auditions and didn't know him, and then I was on the show, and all of a sudden, as I'm walking in, I think I was walking in to audition for Guiding Light for the first time. He came running out to go out and do something. I was like, wait a minute, I know you from auditions. He's like, yeah, what are you doing here? I said, well, I'm auditioning for this character. He's like, well, good luck, And then I ended up getting it. And then, of course, yes, as you're right, he was actually obviously on 90210 as well. So Ian and Luke were people that I actually knew before 90210 happened. And then I actually did a few episodes of the show, which, like I said, was fun. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So come on, Carl, be honest with me. Who was your 90210 crush?
That's good. It was definitely Beth, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Beth and I had a chemistry and a friendship that, it was obvious. For me, it was obvious. So for me, it was definitely it was definitely her. And the character, it was kind of like the character kind of dictated how I felt about her, because my character really cared about her, and she was such a great actress. It was so easy to connect with her, and feel that connection. So in that respect, it was definitely her. And she also had a great sense of humor and was always joking around. So that was definitely my 18-year-old crush when I was 18.
So you returned to soaps and you got on As the World Turns. Tell me about that experience. How did that come about for you?
That was an audition. Actually, yeah, my agent called me and said, As the World Turns is looking for a certain character. And I said, wow, that's great. What's the character? And he told me about it. I met with the producer, and he described it to me. I said, wow, this character sounds like he's fun. He's not a good guy, but he covers really well. And I was like, ooh, so he's kind of evil? He's like, yeah, this character's kind of evil. I said, well, there's nothing better than playing evil and then covering it, So right. I talked to him about it. I told the producer, it sounds like a great role. I'd love to be a part of the show. And he said, cool, well, we'll let you know. And they called me, and it happened. So that was great. That was actually another great show that I had a lot of fun on. And obviously there's some really talented people on that show.
Yeah.
So again, another fortunate opportunity, as an actor, to be able to work with some great people and really, creatively dive into something.
what was it like working with you worked with Leslie Kay, who was Molly, and Christina, who was Abigail?
Yeah, both of them were great. I mean, Leslie was great. Yeah, she reminded me a lot of Beth, that she was always joking around, but really professional when it came to the work. And I thought we had a lot of interesting scenes, and I felt really good about the work that we did. She was great. You know, she was another person that basically was like, "Oh, welcome to the show. What can I do to help you, you know, make the transition? You know, what basically, I'm here, we're working together. What can we do to make this work?" And I was like, "Wow, this is great." That was a good thing. I actually ran into her several years ago out here, and we laughed about the fact that on my final scene, she's supposed to break a metal jewelry box on the back of my head and kill me. That's how my character died.
Right.
And while we were filming it, she swung this this jewelry box and hit me in the back of the head with it, and it actually broke into about 50 pieces. She wasn't supposed to hit me with it, but she did.
Wow.
So then we had to do it again with another jewelry box, and if I'm not mistaken, she hit me again with it. And I thought, wow, you know, the first thing I said to her is, I thought we were friends. You know what I mean? But I don't think she meant it. Well, maybe she did. Who knows? No, I don't think she meant it. But that's how it ended for me with my character on that show. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a totally different side of you that was non-Alan Michael.
Oh yeah, that was an evil character. I mean, I was definitely an evil character. And again, you know, really fun to play that character, because here you are. I'm not an evil person, but boy, it's fun to play a bad person, because you can just go and go and go and realize that, you know, you are the character, but you're not really doing these things to people. So it's fun.
Right. So I haven't seen it yet, but somebody told me about a movie you did called Walking on the Sky. Can you tell me about that movie?
Yeah, well, that's my first movie that I directed and produced and wrote. That's about a 6 friends, a suspicious death in a diary. Basically, the next 24 hours changes all their lives as they come together. And that movie was based on a situation that I had in my life. I had a very close friend who unfortunately passed away early on. And while trying to deal with the loss, and when we were going through his stuff and cleaning up and helping his mother and actually his brother get his things in order, we came across a lot of writings, you know, a lot of things that he wrote in a journal, and nobody knew about them. And we learned a lot about who he was within that. And that was basically the foundation of the film. And I made that film, and that was my first film that I directed, which was great. And it, you know, it opened in New York and LA in independent theaters, and won a bunch of festivals. And that was the beginning of my directing, which led me to my second film, which was Frame of Mind, which is a film that starred Chris Noth, Mr. Big, and Johnny Sack from The Sopranos, and Barbara Barry, who was actually nominated for Academy Award. Aria Barakis was my wife in that film, who played Deuce Bigelow's girlfriend. If you ever saw Deuce Bigelow, the woman whose leg comes off, if you ever saw that, it was a really funny film. Yeah, she played my wife. That was a really great experience. I worked with a terrific producer and writer, Charles Kipps, and that film was my second feature, which was about a New Jersey detective who uncovers new evidence in the Kennedy assassination. And as he starts looking into that information, his whole world gets turned upside down.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I got a fan on here who is a big fan of yours. He says you were the best Alan Michael, and he also kind of corrected us. He said Luke was on Lovin' and not Ryan's Hope.
Oh, you know what? That's good. That's how long ago it was. We auditioned. That's how I met him on the The Ryan's Hope audition is where I met him, but he did get the Loving. That's correct. Yeah, good catch on that one. And thank you for the kind words. Yeah, I'm the original Alan Michaels, so that's all I can say.
Yeah. So talk about you also did an episode of Sex and the City as well.
Yes. Well, while I was getting ready to do my first movie, actually, I had auditioned for that show many times, and they just could not find the right role for me. Jennifer McNamara is an amazing casting director who brought me in on many occasions. And what happened was they called me and said, "Hey, the show's going to end, and we have this episode. Do you want to do it?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." And I didn't even audition for it. They just said you could, they would offer it to me, which was great. And I had fun. It was an episode called "Are We Sluts," which is kind of appropriate for that show. Yeah. And I was the character who actually was involved with, and it's funny, I forget the character's name, the one that was the most promiscuous. I forget the character's name. Anyway, I'll remember. But I let someone was going to rob the building, and they got in the building when I walked in. They snuck in behind me, they robbed the building, and she got in trouble for it. And that was basically the character that I played on that. Interestingly enough, as I started casting my first movie, I called Jennifer McNamara, and she was the casting director, the one that cast Sex and the City. She cast my first film, which was kind of a neat little crossing there of the two worlds.
Right. I meant to have told you though, I actually just saw you the other day on TV. You did an episode with Andy Griffith on Matlock.
Yeah, that was like one of my first jobs. Yeah, that was when I first got to LA. Yeah. Wow, that's a long time ago. Yeah, that was a fun episode. That was one of my first jobs out here, and it was fun. It was definitely it was interesting working with him. He was a legend. It's unfortunately we lost him, but he was a legend as an actor.
Yeah. So these are two questions that I ask people that come on here that's been on Guiding Light. This is the first one for you. So I know you've been off the show since 1990 at this point, but just to ask, what was your reaction when you found out after all them years that Guiding Light was going off the air in 2009?
That was really disheartening. I mean, I felt terrible because the show has affected so many people's lives. It was the longest running television show, I should say scripted show, because it started, as we talked about, on the radio first. And it was, it kind of set a standard in a way because it was the longest running show. I felt badly for everybody involved because it's something that was really amazing that came to an end. So I wasn't, I was really disappointed that there are still shows on now. And unfortunately that show isn't. And I think it still should be. But, I'm obviously not the network, and I'm not the one that makes those decisions. So the actor's input doesn't really take precedence, but I was disappointed that it happened, and I was hoping that it wasn't going to happen. And I thought the show would probably be the last show to go, to tell you the truth. I thought because of its history and how long it was on, that it would probably last the longest, because it already lasted the longest out of all programming, television programming, right? Radio and television combined. So in that respect, I felt like, yeah, if it's going to end, it'll be the last one. It'll be the last hurrah fine. It'll kind of like all the other shows will probably, unfortunately, stop, and then that will be the last show. And when that happens, then we know that era is kind of done. And when it didn't actually unfold like that, I was obviously disappointed, like everybody else that was involved in the show. I'm sure there's nobody that I know would that felt good about the fact that the show came to an end.
Yeah, I remember talking with well, you didn't work with her a lot, but she was on when you was on. She played Lillian, Tina Fong.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I talked with her about that as well because I was a fan of the show, and now when it ended, they put Let's Make a Deal on, and nothing against Wayne Brady, but to me it was like how can you end a show that's been on for years and stick on a game show or a talk show. 'Cause that's what happened when As the World Turns ended. They put the talk on. It's like these two shows been on for years. You can't just do that. But from what Grant was telling me, apparently at the same time, because of the low rate, and his Procter and Gamble kind of wanted to move on too. So I guess, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's it's a business. So at the end of the day, it's about money, and the stories are awesome, and people get involved, and it's great. But at the end of the day, it is still a business, and businesses need to make money to stay in business, right? The viewership is dropping off, and that's what I was told. And we all had a great opportunity to work on the show. Certainly met a lot of great people, like I said, and getting back to my directing, in a way, leaving the show allowed me to start recognizing things that I want to get more involved in as well. And now if I had stayed on the show, I'm not so sure I would have started writing at the level I was writing, and then ultimately directing and producing. I don't know if that would have actually happened like that. And what's so great is I've done several projects, 5 films, and my latest film, which I'm excited about, which won a whole bunch of awards, sold around the world, and you can see it now. It actually has been out for like 3 years, and you can see it now. It's on Tubi. You can see it for free. So if you go to Tubi, that free streaming service that Fox owns, actually, Fox Television, it's called Criticized, and it's CRITICSIZED. That's how it's spelled. If you go on there, you can watch it for free, and that's the film that I'm most proud of. That's my latest film. It's about an independent filmmaker who takes revenge on his critics. So you might understand a little bit of that. Yeah, right. That's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what it's actually called, Criticized, and it's done really well. And it's just keeps getting renewed. It's sold around the world. And if anybody's interested who's listening, check it out. It's free. It's on Tubi. Obviously, the more people that see it, the more I feel like the effort that was put in by everyone was worth it. So I love the fact that it's out there again, and it's an option. And also, if people are interested in following, I have a website called carltevans.com. And I have some of the other projects that I've actually done on there, and new things that are coming up. I am doing that BMW motorcycle commercial, and I'm also getting ready to do another film as the pandemic, as we hope, obviously comes to a manageable end. I got another film happening. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. The show was great, but it did actually allow me to understand that there are other things that I actually want to get involved in as I move forward.
I have a fan on here who her channel is God ENE147. Said, "Hey Carl, you still look the same. You have not changed one bit. You may not remember me, but I had the opportunity of meeting you several times when you was on God in Life."
Wow, that's really cool. Well, I appreciate the kind words. That's very nice, and it was nice. It was cool that I got to meet people that were interested in the show, like we talked about. Nothing better than meeting someone who appreciates your work. I mean, you hear it. I'm sure there's people calling you up or saying to you, "Hey, the podcast was great. I learned a lot. I had a lot of fun. It was entertaining." So you understand when your efforts actually make a difference and put a smile on somebody's face. And I'm doing films, and I'm doing what I'm doing now because I creatively feel like I have to do it. That's the artist in me. But the other big part of it is affecting people and allowing people to think and take a journey emotionally and psychologically, and actually reflect potentially on themselves and the life that they are actually living, and maybe make some changes. Like you said, you learned a lot from the show, right? They were your friends. We were your friends, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
You guys were my escape, just like for anybody else. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that's the same thing. I want people to feel that. And this latest film, Criticized, is it's like Seven. If you've ever seen the movie Seven with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman, it's a thriller. Yeah. And it's definitely on the genre thriller, not horror, but it's got some physical parts of it that if you're squeamish, it might not be for you. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
But it's definitely along those lines of a psychological thriller chess match, and I'm very proud of it because making a film, as you know, is very challenging.
Yeah.
Making a film and getting it out there so that the people can see it is also very, very challenging. You know, the second half of making a movie is selling it. And that's not easy to do. So I have the most amount of respect for anybody who can start a project, have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and complete it. To me, that's someone that I have a lot of respect for, knowing how difficult it actually is.
Well, you heard from folks, and you did answer one question because there was a fan who just messaged me earlier saying he wanted to check out some of your work and how he could see your movies, but you mentioned that.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, the other question I was going to ask you to ask everybody else who come on here, what kind of music do you like?
Oh, I'm all over the place. I like really hard rock. I'm into certain level of heavy metal as well, which I've been listening to since I was about 15 years old. I love dance music. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place with the music. One of my favorite, most inspiring writers / singers is Pete Yorn. He's not as well known as a lot of other artists, but he writes in a way that his lyrics affect me in a very positive way. They force me to really feel a lot, be very emotionally aware. And actually, my first film you asked me about, Walking on the Sky, I actually wrote the screenplay to his album. Like every time I sat down to write, I would play his album. Yeah, and then I met him. I met him on his birthday out in the Hamptons because a friend of mine's brother managed him. So I was actually invited to his birthday party, and I got to meet him, which was a really big deal. And you know, when it comes to music, like I said, I like dance. Definitely love the rap. Tupac was definitely my favorite rapper. Unfortunately, that we lost him, and that was not. Yeah. I listen to pretty much everything. I do like classical as well. Again, it's all about the emotional content, how it makes me feel when I listen. And yeah, I mean, there's no one particular type of music I like. Kind of like there's no one particular movie I like. I just like to be entertained. I like to feel and experience, and that's what a lot of music does. And when it makes me feel something, whether it's energized when I'm working out or more thoughtful about what I'm actually doing or help me with my writing, that's music that I obviously gravitate towards, which is a really big, you know, a big palette, I should say.
Oh, I'm the same way too, because I'm a delivery driver. So whenever I'm on the road, I play my CDs, and I got different songs on my CDs that I listen to. And each different time, whenever a certain song is played, I find the inspiration, and sometimes it will hit me. And one thing I ended up doing that I had to learn to do was whenever I would get an idea, I had to stop and write it down because I would forget quickly. So I had to like write down what my idea was going to go and where it will go to. But is, you know, I don't know what the vocabularize is. I was going to say I'm having a blast talking with you. You know, from seeing you on Guiding Light and now seeing you right now. I forgot to ask you earlier. Were you close with? Did you know Frank Dicopoulos and Peter Simon?
Oh yeah.
Ed and
Absolutely. Yeah. I didn't have many scenes with Ed. But I did have a lot of interaction with Frank on and off, you know, the set. And Frank was also a character. I mean, he was always joking around, and he was a lot of fun. Frank was one of those guys you could just sit and talk about anything, and he'd make it fun. His stories, his situation, and we did have a few scenes together. Yeah, I remember Frank as a really here's the thing. It's kind of unfair to say this because it almost sounds like, where did I work? But everybody was so easy to get along with and supportive. And we all had the same goal. You do hear about a lot of actors and actors working with other individuals where, they were mean, or they were, they were like making it more difficult for me. I hear all these stories about things that took place with other actors in other scenarios. And I've been really fortunate that the people that I've worked with really haven't done that. And Frank was another example of somebody who was really cool, a lot of fun, really all about the work, and made it more exciting because there was somebody you could relate with and get along with. And it was to the point where when I moved out to California, he stayed in my place, and then I stayed in his place when I went back to New York. So that was super cool because he was like, I'm coming out to LA. I'm like, that's funny because I'm going to be in New York. He's like, can I stay at your place? I'm like, of course you can. So you make these connections with people, and it's great. Life's all about your relationships. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your relationships. And that's just the way it is. And I had a lot of really wonderful relationships with the cast and the crew and makeup. I mean, there was a guy that did makeup named Joe Cola, who was the funniest guy. He was like a stand-up comedian, and he would do the makeup, but he'd have all these stories and jokes, and you couldn't help but laugh. And he's like, I'm trying to put your makeup on. Stop laughing. I'm like, well, then stop being so funny. And this was like a daily thing with this guy. It was awesome. It was such a cool thing. So again, the show was a blessing in a way because it really allowed me to understand how hard the show is. And before I got on the show, I didn't know how difficult it was. I have immense respect for any actor that can do one episode, let alone stay on a show, because it's the most difficult forum I've ever worked on, no doubt.
Yeah. You also met Kathleen. I'm trying to say her last. She came on for an episode, guest star in '87 at Christmas. She was Amanda Spalding. Kathleen Curtis. It started with a C.
I don't remember Sorry, I don't remember her last name.
Yeah. She played Amanda Spalding on the show. She did like a one episode appearance in '87 for Christmas. Yeah.
Yeah. That's I don't remember her last name. You have to know that there's a lot of characters on the show, and so it's hard to remember everybody because it was 3 years of another life that you're living. I mean, you're actually living another life basically when you go to work, because you have a whole new storyline with there's about 35 people on the cast or 40 people total at any given time.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember talking with I just had Robert Newman on Tuesday, and we was talking about we was talking about acting, and I told him, like I told some others too, I thought about doing some acting once, but when I was a kid, I did like a little play that we did, and when it got to my turn, I could not remember some of the words, so I kind of struggled a little. And we was doing it. We had the audience and all that, so I kind of froze. But after that, because when I first started making movies, it got to a point where I had a cast, but then people wouldn't show up, so I had to put myself in the camera. So that changed quite a bit. Because I used to ask people like y'all, how do you memorize so much dialogue and only got one take and two takes? I used to think y'all would fake it and go.
No, we weren't faking it. All the lines had to be said almost exactly as they were written, so the cameras could adjust. Because at the end of one line, the camera might, go to another angle. So if you don't say the right line, the camera doesn't know when to go to the other angle. The director's trying to call the shots, right? Well, it's an interesting question, and the way that I found, and a lot of actors find, the lines and how they keep them is they have to emotionally connect to them. So it's not just the lines themselves, it's what are you saying, what do you want from the other person, and why do you feel the way that you do? So when I'm in a scene with Harley, let's say, and we're arguing, the lines are important, but because I care about this person, in my life and I don't want the situation to end, the lines start to make sense because emotionally you connect to why you're saying them. See, a newscaster just says the words to deliver the information, but an actor has to emotionally connect to the words. And then when you connect to them, they become a part of you. And if you understand what's happening in the scene, that ends up getting translated to the lines. So that's how I did it. And it took a little while to build the relationships with the actors to understand that's what was needed for the soap, for the daytime. You've got to be connected because there's so much dialogue. So you've got to be vested and emotionally connected to be able to actually remember the lines. Now, that was my way of doing it. Not everybody does it exactly the same way as me. And other actors have other methods. But for me, that's what it was. Because it's not about the lines again. It's about what you want the story. What's the story and how are you emotionally involved and what do you want? Why are you speaking? So why am I arguing with her? Well, I'm arguing with her in many scenes that I had because I don't want us to break up because I cared so much about her. Well, because I have that feeling that I don't want to lose her, lines make sense because the lines actually follow how I feel emotionally. And that's something you have to tap into, at least I did, to be able to make the lines doable.
Right. Okay. Let me see. The fan who said she had seen you, her name was Leslie Gregory Dean. And she's the one that met you at the fan event at the time. And one fan just asked, did you like Led Zeppelin?
Do I like Led Zeppelin?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. They're classic, iconic legends. I mean, absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah. My mom was Ruth. So I gotta tell you again, Carl, I've had a blast talking with you today. I always have fun talking with people from the show, but people like you and a few others who's been gone since like 1990 hasn't been seen since on the show. I've always have a blast talking with you guys, and I always look forward to, you know, what can I say, man? Other than thank you for what you did on your time on the show as Alan Michael, and I appreciated everything you did. Even on As the World Turns, I know he was a bad guy, but I appreciate your work that you did on both shows. Any final words about Guiding Light?
I can basically say that it was a really wonderful time in my life where I got to grow as an actor, learn a tremendous amount, and meet some really terrific people that made my experience amazing. I was very thankful that it happened. And if I had an opportunity, I'd do it all over again.
Yeah. Somebody just asked, do you still keep in touch with Beth Ellis?
I haven't spoken with her in a really long time, and it's unfortunate. I'd be curious, obviously, to find out how she's doing. Unfortunately, I don't have the ability to connect with her directly, but I'm sure I could find her maybe online and see how she's doing. I certainly hope she's doing well. Again, some of the best times I've had and some of the best scenes I've had were with her. That was ultimately my favorite storyline that I actually was able to interact with her.
Yeah. I know she left the show a year before it ended, and she there's another guy that knows everybody that does a podcast as well. She's been on there, and I believe she does something involving security or police, something that involves a community. I know that much because Frank DeCapos is one of his children works with Beth, so I know she does something like that, and she's changed her name to Beth Christian now.
Did she get married? I'm guessing. Is that what happened?
I'm not sure. I know she did get married, but I'm not sure. But I know she changed her name recently. I've been trying to get in touch with her to bring her on the show as well. Before I let you go, I got one last clip to show you. I'm gonna turn my phone around. Is that your clip you was talking about? I found it.
Oh, you did. Look at that. All right, let me see.
Let me see here. Okay.
You make this big pitch about wanting to be my friend, but Alan Michael Spaulding doesn't have friends from Fifth Street. Hell no, he wouldn't be caught dead with a girl who's been in trouble.
I'm not gonna argue. You know why? It's not worth it.
You mean I'm not worth it? I had a baby and that makes me damaged goods.
Well, don't worry. Even used cars sell.
Oh my God.
Yeah, give me your best shot.
No, not this time.
Wow, that's that's fun. That is a lot of fun. Yeah, I remember that. I remember that. Yeah, we had a great time. You know, that's just a perfect example of a great scene. That's a lot of fun to do, and we had a great time. And I obviously wish her well, and would certainly like to reconnect with her and see how she's doing.
Yeah. Looking at that scene, you know, that's a scene. I remember when I first saw that on here, I was, you know, like I was going to ask Alan Michael, particularly, not you as Carl, but you as Alan Michael. I was going to say, dude, what was your secret to get her to jump on your back? Because y'all went from arguing to kissing.
Yeah, right. How did that happen? Well, it was on page 3, so that's how, you know. Yeah, if the writers thought it would be fun to make her real aggressive, and she was real aggressive in a lot of ways with her character. She was in a lot of, you know, in a lot of people's faces, you know, telling people off, and you know, she's from the other side of the track, so she was supposed to do things we wouldn't normally see, and that's one of the things. That's why it happened. And they wrote her in such a way that she could do that. You know, she was that edgy, and that was why the character was so great.
Well, Carl, forgot to ask you. I know we talked about some of your projects, but I was going to ask you, what can we look forward to through the rest of 2021 and 2021 with you?
Well, definitely check out Criticized on Tubi. I mean, I'd love to have people watch that and hit me up on my website and tell me what they think. So you can email me at carltevans.com. That's my website. And check out the film. Again, it's CRITICSIZED. That's how you spell the name, Criticized. Again, it's free. What I like is people watching it and then telling me what they think with the email. And that's why I have that there. I am going to have a BMW commercial that's going to be out, a motorcycle commercial that I'm going to shoot in about a month. And then after that, I've got a feature film I'm putting together about a true story about an individual who came here from the Philippines who actually became a very, very big drug dealer and then got caught and was looking at 150 years and then got out. And when that individual got out, he opened up actual facilities to help people that had issues. And those facilities have helped thousands of people and they're still open. So it's a story that went bad and then ended up being really good. And I described this individual's life kind of like Blow meets Goodfellas meets a little bit of Forrest Gump, because some of the things this guy got involved in, you wouldn't believe. And the people, the famous people he interacted with while he was doing his drug dealing were people you wouldn't believe some of the stories. So it's really, really an interesting story that I'm very excited about directing. I'm writing the screenplay. And this individual has changed his life and a lot of other people's lives based on what he realized he shouldn't have done. And that's actually really positive. And it's going to make, I think, the story it's going to make the film a big success based on that. And the fact that it's real. When I first read his book, I was like, is this all real? And he solidified that every story was real. So with that's something exciting that's going to happen in 21, maybe early 2022, depending on the timing, the pandemic, and what's happening in the world, of course.
Yeah. Well, Carl, thanks again for taking the time to come on my podcast. And again, I had a blast talking with you as a fan. Thank you for portraying Alan Michael and doing what you did over the years. I'm sure fans still approach you today as Alan Michael or anything else you've done.
Yeah, they do. They do. And thank you for keeping the show alive by doing the podcast. I really appreciate that. This has been a lot of fun for me as well. And as more things progress with my directing, I'll certainly reach out to you, and we can talk more about it as things come up.
Oh, absolutely. I was going to ask you that. I know you got a tight schedule, but in December, that's going to be my 1 year anniversary, and I'm going to have some people, including Grant. Hopefully, if he has some time to come back. I was going to say, if you had an hour to spare again in December, would you have some time to come back?
Absolutely. Yeah. Just let me know if I'm not filming or on a set or something. I'll certainly make time to do it for sure.
Okay. Well, Carl, thank you, man. God bless you, and you have a good night.
Thank you. All right. Take care of yourself. Thanks again.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, I got it. Well, guys, thanks again for tuning in to PE Slick Podcast. I hope you guys had a blast. Those who haven't seen it, I'm going to repost this so you guys can see it on Facebook or Instagram, anywhere, because I had a blast. And thanks again to Carl. If I don't know if y'all heard me when I was talking with Robert. I'm gonna say it again now, but yeah, in December it'll be my 1 year anniversary. We're doing podcasting, and I'm gonna try to have some guy like guys who's been on in the recently come back, and hopefully Robert and Carl and Grant can come back. And for those who don't know, who's listening, if you haven't turned this off yet, Toby Poser, who was Amanda Spalding, is going to come on in October. I've talked to her. She's going to come aboard, and we're going to do a podcast where she talked about playing Amanda Spalding in 95 to 98. And I'm looking forward to more. Gregory. Yeah, it's true. I talked to both Toby Poser, who played Amanda, and Fiona Hutchinson, who was Jenna Bradshaw and Gabriella Wanted to Live. I talked to the both of them, and one by one, 101, they're going to come on the show, and it's going to be a blast. So I'm looking forward to that. Nothing new next week for podcasting, but until I hear back from both of them. But until then, stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Gregory, let me see. Gregory, Mr. Naylor, Mr. Black, Wesley, and anybody else is watching this, thank you for, what y'all have done. If you look at my past episodes, you'll see many of the other guests I've had on in the past that was on Guy and Light, even Scott Bryce from As the World Turns. We're going to talk to him because he's supposed to come back as well, Scott Bryce. And David Andrew McDonald, who played Edmund, he's going to come back as well. But thank you guys, all you guys who's been watching, and God bless you guys. Until next time.